So when we talk about international relations,
Mm.
economic pressure,
Mm-hmm.
it often seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it?
Yeah, the usual thinking is you impose sanctions, you put up bans, and you get a certain result.
Right. You cut off access, you apply pressure, and the target, well, they either comply or they really struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But what if that whole assumption, the one we generally accept, actually leads somewhere completely different, maybe more often than we think?
Well, that's a fascinating counter-narrative, and it's right at the heart of the sources you've shared with us for today.
Exactly. So this deep dive is all about digging into that, specifically the recent history of U.S. attempts to, let's say, contain China's rise.
Right.
You've given the whole range of materials, articles, research, your notes, detailing the different strategies the U.S. has tried.
And our mission today really is to unpack all that, to look at these sources and ask, have these containment efforts actually, worked as intended?
Yeah.
We're going to explore what these materials keep pointing towards this kind of backfire effect. It seems many of these actions might have, perhaps inadvertently, ended up strengthening China.
And we'll look at specifics, right? We'll dive into examples, tech giants, global trade, even the pandemic response.
Absolutely. Uncovering the sometimes really surprising outcomes and what they signal about global dynamics today.
Okay, so let's get into it.
So the core argument that keeps coming up in all these sources is, well, it's pretty compelling. The U.S. has tried repeatedly using different tools, bans, tariffs, sanctions to contain China's growth.
And the result, which seems so counterintuitive but also consistent, is that pretty much every attempt seems to have either backfired or maybe even sped up China's push for self-reliance and its influence globally.
And what's really interesting, I think, is the mechanism here. The sources show this pattern where China consistently turns that external pressure into, well, internal motivation, fuel for innovation, for expansion.
It's not just reacting defensively.
No, exactly. It often looks like an acceleration of plans they might have already had. It fundamentally shifts the ground underneath.
Okay, let's take a big example, one that really highlights this, Huawei and the tech ban starting around 2019.
Right.
The U.S. strategy seemed pretty clear. Stop Huawei working with American firms. Cut off Google services, crucial 5G stuff.
Yeah, the components. And the expectation, you probably remember, it was widely thought the company might just collapse.
Totally. But that's not what happened, is it?
Not at all. Instead of folding, Huawei moved incredibly fast. They developed their own operating system, Harmony OS.
Right.
And what's really striking, as the sources detail, is by 2023, they were actually making their own advanced chips.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this wasn't just patching a hole. It was like a supercharged acceleration of a long-term national goal for semiconductor independence. It really shows how they can leverage state support and, domestic R&D to get around these blocks.
A huge example of that self-reliance idea pushed by external pressure. Okay, now let's shift to something more recent, maybe less obvious. TikTok. And the attempted ban in 2024. The U.S. law said TikTok had to be sold or face a ban. The aim seemed to be about curbing influence, maybe data concerns.
Sure. But the sources suggest this didn't really contain China's cultural reach. If anything, it might have done the opposite.
How so?
Well, it seems to have sparked this surge in interest in other Chinese cultural content alternative platforms. People started engaging more with apps like RedNote.
Ah, yeah, I've heard of that. Sharing lifestyle, cultural trends from China.
Exactly. So paradoxically, you have Americans directly engaging with these other Chinese platforms. It might have actually given China more global exposure, culturally speaking, a real backfire on the containment idea.
Huh. So Huawei showed self-reliance in products and software. What about when the pressure hits the absolute building blocks, the fundamental tech? That brings us to the advanced chip restrictions.
Right, the ban on selling cutting-edge chips, like NVIDIA's high-end stuff, to China. The goal was clearly to hobble their progress in high-tech in AI.
Starve them of the key components.
Precisely. And China's response? An immediate, massive investment into their own domestic chip making.
And did it work? I mean, that's incredibly hard to do.
Well, according to the sources, the results have been surprisingly strong and surprisingly fast. Companies like Huawei, Xiaomi, they're producing advanced chips without Western tech.
Really? That's significant.
It is. It's not just making any chips. They're pushing the boundaries of what they can do independently. It's like the ban forced them to accelerate their own capabilities in a way that maybe wouldn't have happened as quickly otherwise.
Okay, so this pattern, building domestic strength, finding new paths, it's not just in high tech then.
No, not at all. We see it very clearly in trade, too.
Hmm.
Think about the U.S. blocking imports of certain goods from Xinjiang. Cotton, solar panels were mentioned specifically.
Right.
China's response was, well, multi-pronged. Boost domestic use of those same products and, quite interestingly, also really promote tourism to Xinjiang.
Huh. And the broader effect.
If you connect the dots, this pivot, especially on solar, directly fed into China becoming the world's largest solar exporter. So again, they leverage their internal market, find new global outlets, and instead of being crippled, they actually grow their dominance in that sector.
It's a consistent theme. What about the COVID-19 pandemic? That feels different, but maybe there's a similar dynamic.
It is different, but the sources draw a connection. The U.S. approach included, attributing blame, the whole China virus narrative.
Right, the idea seemed to be to isolate, maybe discredit China on the world stage.
But look at the outcomes globally. While the U.S. Struggled with aspects of its response, China implemented these incredibly strict lockdowns, mass testing, and then, crucially, became a major vaccine supplier to developing nations.
Ah, okay, so that shifted perceptions.
It certainly seems to have solidified new relationships, maybe altered global narratives in ways that weren't intended by the initial pressure. It raises questions about how these things play out.
Okay, one last case, bringing us right up to today. The tariffs on EVs and green tech in 2024.
Yes, the U.S. raised tariffs quite significantly on Chinese electric vehicles, solar panels, again, other clean energy products.
Aiming to protect U.S. industries, slow down China's big push in these areas.
But instead of stopping them, the sources suggest it just spurred an even bigger push into other global markets.
Where specifically?
Places like Brazil, Thailand, South Africa are mentioned. They doubled down on exporting elsewhere, and the result today. China is the largest car exporter in the world.
The largest.
Yeah. So it's another powerful example of just adapting the trade strategy to keep growing, even when a major market like the U.S. throws up barriers.
So putting this all together, the pattern seems, well, incredibly clear. Almost every major attempt to contain or stop China has, according to these sources, ended up pushing them forward.
Exactly. Reinforcing their growth, their capabilities. The transformation is really something. They've moved from being potentially dependent on the West for key tech or markets.
Building their own.
Right. Their own tech ecosystems, robust domestic supply chains, huge internal markets. And it wasn't just a forced reaction. It seems like it accelerated their existing strategic direction.
And the ultimate impact of this repeated backfire. It sounds like this whole process has, maybe paradoxically, made China stronger, more innovative.
And significantly more influential globally than they might have been without that pressure. It's almost the complete opposite of the intended effect.
It really makes you question the playbook, doesn't it? This consistent pattern. I mean, what stands out most to you when you look at it laid out like this?
For me, it's how external pressure can become such a powerful internal catalyst. The sources just show cycle after cycle. Pressure leads to motivation, which leads to greater self-reliance, and then often this unexpected global expansion.
So, thinking ahead, what does this mean for international relations? If these traditional containment tools often seem to lead to this kind of, well, unexpected empowerment, what other approaches could even be considered? How do you navigate this complex competition going forward?
That's the big question, isn't it? If the old ways aren't working as expected, maybe even backfiring, what comes next? It's definitely something to think about.